So I did a thing this past Friday. I went to a jazz jam session. Actually, arguably the world's most famous jazz jam session. I sat there nervously in the front row waiting my turn. When it was my turn to play, I tried to suggest a song, then immediately drew dirty looks and got shut down.
Like someone in love.
Yeah.
And now I'm making a video about it that thousands of people are going to see, but this is actually a completely mundane, ordinary thing thousands of musicians do every week. It's like saying, today I tied my shoes. Well, great job, Jimmy. So what's the point here? Well, it's the first time I played with a band in front of an audience in almost a decade. I've done clinics. I was lucky enough to do Drumeo. I've done Meinl. But this is a photo of the last actual live gig I did. It was at Shapeshifter Lab in Brooklyn, with my friends Mike Webster, Zach Lober, and Chris Stillman. After that, I basically went virtual only. It wasn't like I made one decision to take a decade off of playing gigs. It was more like each day I woke up and decided anew that day that I wasn't going to play any gigs. But I'm back. In the past 2 weeks, I've been to 3 live performances and played at one of them. I'm trying to put myself out there again, building the old network, trying to play music in meat space. And today we're going to talk about why, and why, if I had it to do over again, I wouldn't take this long. And we'll also show some footage of the completely mundane act of me sitting in at Smalls, which, I need to emphasize, is something people do multiple times every day of the year, so I'm not claiming there's anything special about it, save that I hadn't done it for a long time. But you might want to see, how does the 80/20 drummer sound with the real jazz band? Oh, I'm Nate, and some people call me the 80/20 drummer. And on this channel, we talk about things drumming, and some things, actually very few things. Anyway, today on the channel, how important is it for drummers to play live? And why or why not? Stay tuned. And folks, today's video is brought to you by me, the 80/20 drummer. If you've been following the channel for a while, if you've been lurking, you feel like you might be ready to study with me, I recommend my 2 flavors of live coaching, individual or group. But if you're wondering how I teach, how I approach stuff, and you like a completely free gateway drug to that, I recommend my 3-video mini course. It's 3 complete videos of instruction with transcriptions almost 45 minutes long. I don't share it on YouTube, and it's completely free. And the only thing you need to do is click the link below the player and tell us where to send it on the next page. All right, on with the lesson. All right, so I'm in the West Village. You might recognize this, the little park by Greenwich Ave and 7th, and we are on our way to Smalls. Haven't been to a official jazz jam session in about a decade. Not really nervous. Just hope it's not a total waste of my time. But gonna go there. We'll film what we can. I don't know if I'm allowed to film inside, so I think they have like the official feed that I can probably bootleg later. Might get some underground recordings. So let's see how it goes. This is like someone in love. Smalls, in New York's Greenwich Village, might be the most famous jazz jam session in the world. But it's also super accessible. They have sessions many weekday and weekend afternoons, and very affordable admission. On the day I was there, it was free to enter, and I just ordered a club soda. I was also lucky that I was able to play pretty soon after arriving. The house drummer was very generous and let me play 3 songs. The etiquette. Don't say you don't know a tune. Don't play too loud or miss a cue. Definitely don't rush or drag. And for drummers, this is unique to us, but try not to f with the house drummer's kit. But let's talk about why I'm starting to play in real life again. Over the years, I'd get comments like this one, and I'd usually laugh them off, because I had played a bunch of gigs. I'm not saying I was particularly good, just that I'd put in a good amount of time. But 2 things started to sway me. The first was seeing so many drummers starting bands, sounding great, and having fun. Here's Zach with Everything Yes. Here's Noah Feuerbringer with his band I Wish I Could Just Rent Out as a rhythm section. Little by little, I started getting the itch. The second thing was I started hearing from podcast guests how important they considered it. Like, here's Rob Brown, for example.
How important do you think it is for drummers to have real-world experience playing with real musicians? And what do you think that gives somebody that they can't get from just practicing or playing along with tracks?
Wow. I mean, at the end of the day, that's really the most important thing. Like, why, if you're going to spend half your life perfecting the art of public speaking and you never talk in front of people, then what's the point, right? We become musicians. Like, a big part of being a musician is the communication aspect. So if you're not eventually playing with people, then what are you doing it for?
Earlier this year, having drinks with a friend, I confessed that maybe this year I would start a band. After that, it was on the back burner for a while, continuing to pop up on things to do this month lists. What pushed me over the edge, though, was seeing J.P. Bouvet with Childish Shapes. Damn, that looked fun. And it reminded me when I used to be on stage with a band, and the vibe was good, when we'd find that flow state in front of a crowd. The second tune I played at Smalls was But Not For Me. One thing that's different for drummers than for practically everybody else is you've got to adapt to somebody else's equipment. The drums are in slightly different places than you used to. The seat is higher or lower, the spring tension on the kick pedal, but the big one is the touch of the drums and cymbals relative to how live the room is. You're used to a certain touch on your setup, and you either have to play louder or softer on somebody else's. On this drummer's kit, the hi-hat cymbals made a very loud check, so it took me a few reps to get the touch with my left foot. But you have to play it as you find it, and the first time you're going to feel it is during an actual song. So play simply and remember to listen and let the kit come to you. And this is a segue into why it's important to play gigs in real life, if indeed it is. And for me, it comes down to one thing. Why do we play music? There are a few reasons. The act of learning something develops our mind and gives us discipline. It helps us appreciate music more, since we're deeper in it. But for me, and if we're being honest, probably for a lot of people, it's about that feeling. I've never surfed, but I've heard it compared to catching a wave. I've never done comedy, but I've heard it compared to getting a big laugh at an open mic. If you've played a little bit, even if you haven't played any gigs, you've maybe felt it playing along with recordings. Your heart rate goes up a little. You get a little tingle in your spine. You can't stop smiling. This is a cliche, but it's been called flow. But bottom line, if that feeling's important to you, the best way to feel it is with other humans on stage and other humans watching. The most recent session I went to was Producer Mondays at New Blue. I naively believed I might be able to sit in, but quickly accepted that it was not going to happen when I saw how full the room was. But I want to use this footage to illustrate something. The band is vibing with itself and also with the crowd. You can feel it from the crowd too. That feeling was in the air during JP's performance 2 weeks ago. It's kind of a collective rapture. Anyway, all of this is just to illustrate that playing with the band in public is the best version of this feeling. back to me at Smalls. After a few choruses of the piano player crushing, it was time to trade. You'll notice there's one reason to play gigs I didn't talk about, and that's legitimacy. Recently, Thomas Pridgen made a point I consider valid.
That signs you as an official musician when you have a record and you play on a Herbie record or you play with Miles. Like, a lot of people play with Miles at a jazz club, but a lot of people ain't on Plugged at the Nickel.
This is complex though, because it's different depending on your perspective. As a listener, the most interesting musicians are probably going to be those who recorded a lot with other humans. But as a musician, if you go too far down the path of doing something because it's considered legit, you're just doing another version of what the kids call clout chasing, which isn't always wrong, but it's like a drug. You get it. But now, let's talk about why I quit. Because if live music is so good, why did I, quit? I got into music for the same reason a lot of people probably did. For that feeling we've been talking about. And there were plenty of moments when I got to feel that. But there was another thing in New York at the time. A thing that's hard to describe to somebody who came up since online music and social media has become such a thing. Let's break it down this way. In this day and age, we have multiple musicians who have created a following online, then translated that into real-life gigs. Dirty Loops, Pomplamoose, Louis Cole, jazz musicians like Chad Lefkowitz Brown. Now we've got things like Zildjian Live and Meinl putting up performance videos. My point is that nowadays there are a ton of spaces where you can go to perform. Meet other musicians in real life, start playing together. You want a gig? Venues probably want an audience. Also, it's no fun playing to tables and chairs, so build that audience online. Then, venue checks your Instagram followers and says, okay. Now that's abundance. Nobody's taking away your opportunities, because there's always a space you can go. But if we wind back 10 to 15 years, that extra space doesn't exist. Everybody in New York is competing for a small number of physical venues, and the only way to get an audience is to do gigs and meet space, and the only way to get gigs and meet space is to have an audience. So you get this chicken-egg grind. And everybody else is on the same hustle, all competing for the same tiny postage stamp of real estate. So, jam sessions and hangs back then had a vibe, a sting to them. To me at least. And all the clout chasing people complain about that exists online today was way worse when online didn't exist. And eventually I came to feel like I was spending 80% of my energy grinding and doing the politics thing, and only 20% actually participating in music the way that had been my dream. For way more on that, check out a kinda oldie video here. This is Corcovado. I like a bossa now and again. The last chapter of this story is my mistake. Because as online music came into its own, I probably didn't recognize as soon as I should have that the old rules were gone. Because it's different now. I mean, the reason you're seeing this footage is that Smalls has a live feed for all their gigs, which you can watch and rewatch free online. At New Blue, everybody encourages filming the music, and the bands all have videographers. It's a much better time for somebody to meet musicians, start a band, get an audience, play gigs, and do what you want with it. That went well. The house drummer, super generous. I followed him on Instagram. I'll try to shout him out. So observations. The bass player, super high level, Jack something. I'll be sure to look him up. Horn players, all super high level. Both piano players, killing. Couple of awkward starts with the songs with the singer. That's okay. We got going. My attempt to call Quasimodo was met with terrific disdain in the grand New York jazz tradition. Let's walk down the street. And instead we played Like Someone in Love. Great range of tempos, great range of challenges, and interesting experience sitting in on somebody else's kit. Those hi-hats were super sensitive, so I had to everything was calibrating to try to like get the touch nailed, and by maybe middle of the second tune, I had it in a spot where I felt like I could keep the dynamics and the touch good, but also be expressive. So we'll see. Luckily, they record everything, so all the songs will be on the live feed. That's why I didn't even feel like I wanted to film inside. It would have felt rude. But yeah, let's see how it goes. Which leaves us with what my plans are now. I'm going to try to make up for lost time. I'm going to try to start to meet musicians in real life again. Play sessions. Maybe I'll film some for the channel if people give their permission. And it's difficult now because I have a boring adult schedule. But I finally have a platform that pays me to do music. Just as I let the politics and the clout chasing steer me away from my dream for the wrong reasons in the first place, I shouldn't let my work on the channel do, well, the same thing. Guys, let me know what you think in the comments. And if you've enjoyed this one, and if you've been following the channel for a while, if you've been lurking, you might be ready to study with me. And there's one really easy way to find out. It's my Gateway Drug course, my 3 free video mini course you can get by clicking the link below the player and telling us where to send it. Dudes, it's been real. Always enjoyed these. See you again real soon in another Lesson of the Week.